Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 8 of Perfect Inspiration. My name is Brian Matias. Now with today's image, I thought it was important to talk about the importance of using vanishing points. So vanishing points are those distant areas of your scene that almost kind of converge into nothingness. And I find that when you use them effectively, it actually helps tell the story of the image. I'm a big fan of believing that sometimes the story of your image is more about what the viewer doesn't see than what they do see. So I thought this example here of this alleyway taken in the Dumbo area of Brooklyn, New York, which is where I was born and raised, would be a good example. So Dumbo stands for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass, and in the text right above, I provided a link if you want to learn more about this absolutely fantastic area of Brooklyn. Now, for me, we're going to do a few things here, but the reason why I took this shot the way I did was I wanted to create a lot of leading lines down the street. So I took this one evening and I had my Canon 17mm tilt shift lens on. So what I wanted to do was get this rather nice ultra-wide sweeping view of the street, and instead of shooting it head-on, whereas if I was standing in the middle of the street and just shooting straight, I would lose a lot of this impact. I ended up just kind of walking over to the side here, and by doing that and perching my tripod just above the street level, I was able to get these really nice leading lines. So you've got these leading lines all converging to what we call a vanishing point. So you can see as I'm drawing through here, all these lines converge right here, and that's my vanishing point. And it might be small, but it does a really nice job, especially with these specular highlights from the street lamps. It does a really nice job of dragging the eye through the frame, and that is one of the agendas that I have with every image, is I want to control how the viewer's eye goes through the frame. Now, you can see with this image, it's actually, in my opinion, rather flat because you've got these really blown out lights. You've got some clipped shadows over here. So what I actually did was I shot for HDR. Now, I actually forgot, I have a little treat here. I prepped up in advance just on Google Maps so people can see. I want to try to do this more often with the Perfect Inspiration series. If it's applicable, I want to show you where I took the shot. So this is Manhattan, the island of Manhattan. This is Jersey, and this is Brooklyn, my hometown. So Dumbo is right here. So this is the Brooklyn Bridge. If we kind of zoom in here, and that's the Manhattan Bridge, and this is Dumbo. Now you can see as I kind of go a little closer here, the shot that I took was on the corner of Water and Prince Street. So there's, or rather Water and Pearl. So it's right over here. There's Pearl, there's Water, and I actually have a shot from the Google Maps Street View, which I have the most amount of fun using. This is that wall that we took during the day, some pedestrians walking across, and you can see it still have the cobblestone street, and there's the vanishing point over here. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where I took the shot. All right, so again, I mentioned that what I did here was I bracketed for the full tonal range of the scene. So what I mean by the tonal range is I want my exposures to contain information for the brightest parts of the scene, and then as I scroll through, I want to get mid-tone information, and then I want to get shadow information. So now you can see I'm getting all of this good information over here in the doorway and throughout. So if I take my grid here and I select all these images, let's send this over to Photomatix. That's the product I use for tone mapping for this example. I'm just going to right-click, go to Export, and then send it to Photomatix Pro. All right, so here we are in Photomatix Pro. I believe this is version 4.2. And what I did in advance was I hit the default key, or rather the default button. And I recommend users who are new to HDR or new to this program to use that button every time they send an image in for tone mapping, because what it does is it resets all of these sliders to factory standards, and it gives you really the best amount of opportunity to learn how these sliders affect each other. What I'm going to do first is, for a scene like this, typically a scene that is very texture rich, as opposed to something that might be a nice kind of simple landscape, I usually take the overall strength slider and I jack that up to 100, just as a rule of thumb for my work. It totally varies, but for me, I find that to work really well. Now, you can see that we have this major loss of highlight information, which if you're doing tone mapping correctly, you shouldn't have. So what I'm going to do, the reason why that we have that loss is because the default white point value is set way high to 0.25. I'm going to drop that down to about 0.9. I'm going to bring up the black point a bit. And you can see right off the bat now that we're starting to get a good even exposure. Now, again, even exposure doesn't necessarily mean that everything is bright. It just means that what is bright, what is dark, but we still have data in the areas that we need. So I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to bring the lighting adjustment, which is the overall tone mapping algorithm strength, down to about 0.5. I'm going to bring up the luminosity a bit, and I'm going to bring up detail contrast a bit. And then finally, I'm going to bring up the gamma, which is kind of like the brightness of the scene. Now, I'm bringing the brightness up more than I normally would. And the reason for that is when we stylize in the suite, a lot of times the effects we apply are very heavy-handed. They're very strong. So I want to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. I want to give myself a little bit more information. And you can even see here, if I show you the histogram, we actually have a good amount of information, and we have no loss of highlights, no loss in the shadows. So that right there is really important. That essentially means that we have all of the data that we need in the tonal range of the scene here. When I'm done, I'll just hit Save and Re-import to return back to Lightroom, and we can continue on. Okay, so we're back in Lightroom 4, and I'm going to hit L twice to toggle Lights Out mode so we can see a comparison here. And you can see, as we scan across the image, that we just have a nice representative scene. We've got information throughout the image over here that we didn't have before. So that, to me, is really important. Like, if you look up here, you can see that we've got detail in the structure here, whereas over here we really don't have anything. All that really is important to me. So let's just kind of get out of Lights Out mode and go into the grid view. And then I'm going to take this tone mapped image that we have right here, and I'm going to send it over to the suite by going to File, Plug in Extras, and then selecting Perfect Photo Suite. All right, now that we're in Perfect Layers, this is usually where I'll start doing any spot removal or try to fix the image where I need to. So by using the Refine brush over here, I can see I have a few dust spots right there that I'm going to draw on, and then I'm just going to draw to get rid of that thread that I had there. I'm not sure what that was. It might have been an airplane that flew through, but it's easy enough to get rid of. If you want, we can try to remove this over here to get rid of that. I don't mind this whole patch, but that little one over there was bothering me a bit. With that done, I can now send it to Perfect Effects to start stylizing. This is where the fun is. So I'm going to hit Effects from the module selector at the top to bring it in. All right, now that we're in Perfect Effects, there really is a million different ways that we can go. We can try converting this to a black and white image if we wanted, but for me, I think I'm going to go for a very dark color noir shot. To do that, I'm going to start off by going to the Movie Looks category, and I'm going to change the overall look of the image using the Blue Dawn effect. Now, you can see here with the Blue Dawn effect, the Blue Dawn effect is great because it gives you that somewhat of a really soft oil painting look, which I'm not going for totally. The first thing I will do, though, is I don't want to use the normal blending mode for Blue Dawn. I'm actually going to bring up the blending options, which is under the Advanced tab of Perfect Effects. And with the blending options HUD popped up, I'm going to go to the blending mode dropdown, and I'm going to scroll down, getting live previews. Multiply will be really dark, as you can see here. I'm going to go to Soft Light. Now, Soft Light, I mean, at 100% it's very strong, but I love that mood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to 0, and I'm going to start bringing it up. Somewhere about 42 to 44% is starting to give me the base that I'm going for. I'm going to hit Apply to commit that blending mode, and then I'm going to hit Add. Now, the next thing that I want to do is bring out texture. The Blue Dawn really softened the image, and so to bring out some of that texture, I'm going to go to the Color and Tone category. I'm going to scroll over to the right, and one of my favorite effects is called Tonal Contrast. So tonal contrast, as you can see, it can be very strong, and it's applied to the whole image, which I don't want. I really only want texture on the wall and on the road and even a little bit on the background, but I want to avoid most of this area. For me, the easiest way to do that is to take my masking bug. I'm going to then click on the image and I'm going to adjust it here. Now, what I will do is I'm going to bring the inspector up and I want to control the feather so that the bug, the edge of that bug, is a straight line. To help illustrate, let's bring up the mask here. And you can see with the edge feather, as I bring it to 0, we have that hard line, and if I brought it to 100, it'd be very, very, very gradual. So I'm going to keep that at 0, and then I'm going to adjust the positioning of the bug so that I get essentially like this. There. And you can see that I essentially got along the razor edge of this horizon, which I'm okay with. I'm going to bring the inspector back up, go to the mask, and select none to hide it. You can also, to bring the mask up, there's a keyboard shortcut. It's Command M on a Mac and Control M on a PC. Alright, so I've taken care of adding the texture where I want, but we're still at that really strong 100% texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the slider down to 0, the strength slider, and then I'm going to bring up that mask. Somewhere about maybe 68% looks really good. And then what I want to do is I want to brighten up all the areas that have the tonal contrast effect applied. So with the brightness slider under the effect options, which is just down here, I'm going to bring that brightness up to about 26%. Again, this is all giving me kind of a handicap or a head start as I start applying effects that will darken the image. I'll hit Add to commit that, and now I'm going to change again the overall tone. Blue Dawn gave me a baseline, but now if I go to back to movie looks and scroll over to the right, I'm going to change the look using Thermopylae. So Thermopylae does a really strong job of kind of changing that light. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my blending options here, and I'm going to scroll through to see if there's a better blending mode. And again, soft light I think is doing it for me. So you can see here at 0 or at 100%, that's the full blending mode, soft light with Thermopylae. I'm just going to bring it up maybe to about 40%. And now the image is starting to take shape for me. What I will do is I will hit Add. And the only thing that I want to do is I want to add a little bit of brightness selectively to the wall and to the cobblestone. To do that, I'm going to go to the color and tone category, and I'm going to apply an effect called lighter, which again applies to the whole image here. I'm going to take my masking brush this time and bring up the inspector. With the inspector up, I'm going to hit the invert button. What the invert button does is it essentially hides the entire lighter effect, and it puts the masking brush into a paint in mode. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and start painting on the areas that I want to essentially brighten. So this is kind of like a dodge brush. Now, sometimes it helps to bring up the mask so you can see if you've missed any areas. So I'm essentially just kind of painting through here. And I'm going to go around the door, and I'll show why. And I'm kind of being a bit quick here, but I want to give you the idea of what I want to do with my masking brush. So I'm just kind of going around here, and I'm going to stop short of that background door. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mask off so it can see the image, and I'm going to take the opacity of my brush and bring it down to about 30%. So what this is going to allow me to do is paint in the brightness at a slower increment. And so I'm just going to brighten the cobblestone. You can see just a bit, and I'm also going to brighten that door just a bit. And what that does is it helps create more of a visual line using light and dark. And so now you can see if I close the inspector, let's take a look. I'm going to drop the effect bar. Let's look at our original image and our after image. So with the help of tone mapping, I was able to get a really nice baseline, and then using perfect effects, we were able to get a really cool style. But we're not done yet. What I want to do is take this image from here and render this vanishing point out of focus to further add to the kind of mystery of what's out there. So to do that, I'm just going to click on Focus from the module selector to jump right in. All right, here we are in focal point. I reset all the settings to factory defaults, and you can see we've got our trusty focus bug. Now, I'm going to change the shape of the bug, which is round by default, to planar by going to the shape, round, planar. Now, you can see that we've got the aperture that is designated right here is giving the image a geometric shape, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the curvature and bring it all the way out. And that's essentially going to give me round specular highlights in the bokeh area. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first planar bug and I'm going to make it horizontal and then bring it down to the foreground. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the bug so that the plane is pointing towards the background. To do that, press the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on a PC while the cursor is inside the body of the bug. So you can see if I'm not pressing Option, we have the unit size for the mask. When I press Option, I get the tilt units. And so I'm going to drag upward and then again drop down, bring up the masking bug a little bit more, or rather the focus bug. Now, I've taken care of creating the plane of focus for the foreground, but now I want to actually bring this area in focus as well, since this area is also on the same plane of focus. To do that, I'm going to take the plus button right here under the focus bug panel to create a second bug. You can see it right here. There's our first bug. I'm going to change the shape again from round to planar, and I'm going to bring it over to the left, and then extend it outward and also tilt it. So I'm going to extend it outward to about there, maybe even a little bit wider. Now, you can see that this is a bit unrealistic over here because it's way too blurry. And that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that amount down of blur to about 10%. And you can see that both focus bugs will retain the same amount, so you don't have to worry about some weird discrepancy. What I'm also going to do is drop the brightness of that out of focus area under the Options panel and boost the contrast. And so it adds a little bit more mystery here. Now, if you want to make those specular highlights pop a little bit more, you can increase the highlight bloom slider, and they'll kind of pop out a little bit more, which is really nice. And so you can see it was a very minimal amount, but it does a really nice job of kind of giving some mystery to our vanishing point over there. Now that I'm done, I'm going to hit Apply to return back to Perfect Layers, and then save it to return back to Lightroom. Okay, so in Perfect Layers, you can see we have our original layer. This is the tone mapped image that we sent into Perfect Photo Suite. We then sent the image to Perfect Effects to give it some stylization, which changed the overall look of the image, but we still have a kind of static vanishing point. So we took care of that with Focal Point by rendering it very, very slightly out of focus. Now that we're done with the image, we can hit Save to return back to Lightroom and finish things off. All right, now that we're in Lightroom, I'm going to go to the Develop module really quickly just to add a few quick settings and finish the image up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase the clarity just a bit, which will add a bit more of that kind of texture to the image. I'm also going to drop the exposure just a tiny bit, and I'm going to boost up the vibrance to give it a color pop. And then finally, when I press the Option key or the Alt key in Lightroom under these 4 sliders here, I can actually get the correct white and black points. So all I'm doing is I'm dragging until I have as little information as possible by those dots. And so you can see it's a very, very subtle difference, but it does make a really nice change to the overall image. Be sure to download the Perfect Effects preset that I used to create this image right below this video, and I look forward to seeing you next week for episode number 9. Thank you very much.